Mayor, thank you, staff, for the summary, and appreciate the speakers from the public. Many of you add value in many different ways, and that's appreciated. In the end, though, and the way that things work out, that a decision must be made, and this falls on those that have been vetted and elected, which by all the residents, which is us on the city council. So let me just say I'd like to start at the beginning. Okay, not when the city council discussed this item twice, heard testimony from the public twice, and voted unanimously twice to support the staff recommendation nearly 5 months ago, but rather starting with the railroad company itself. The railroad company, for the purpose of commerce, took 95 telephone poles and sunk them into the creek over a half-century ago. 95 telephone poles treated with a chemical called creosote, a chemical which is leached into the amphibian habitat for decades. A chemical, when ignited, sends a toxic cloud into the air, and in this case, into an adjacent neighborhood. 95 chemically treated telephone poles in the waterway does not win an environmental award. The railroad company damaged this riparian corridor and is certainly not an environmental steward. A structure like this would not be allowed to be built today. The city would not approve it, the water district would not approve it, state fish and wildlife would not approve it. Why? Because clean water regulations have improved over time. In fact, the city is currently working on a policy for no development 100 feet from the creek, yet this man-made structure is actually within the creek. As shown in the video, other jurisdictions like Washington State have been proactive in actually removing these structures from the waterway. Technical staff from the Water District and the State Department of Fish and Wildlife are pleased with the staff recommendation to remove the structure. Removing the structure will allow for the restoration of the riparian corridor with a new, safe, fire-resistant bridge that will not impede the waterway since it spans the creek from above. Removing the structure eliminates a known and documented risk of toxic smoke to the neighborhood and creates a permanent connection linking two trails for 75 years or longer. The council has heard testimony on this item from Save Our Trails and the Willow Glen Neighborhood Association, who both support the staff recommendation, and along with the greater community are pleased with the progress made over the summer and look forward to opening the new bridge in 2014. Save Our Trails has conducted public meetings for years on the trail. Save Our Trails has and is the leading community advocate for this trail and has adopted the trail and organized volunteer cleanups. Likewise, the Willow Glen Neighborhood Association has worked with Friends of the Los Gatos Creek to clean up the creek in a very significant way. Some individuals would like to preserve the current structure, even if it means delaying the completion of this trail for unknown years. Though they may have sincere hearts and can articulate their passion well for the nostalgic structure, critics come forward with no funding, and thus the alternative is no connection between these two creeks for many years to come. There are no other funds besides these grant funds available for this project today or in the coming years. We as a council vote on many things: budget, ordinances, policy, land use. Rarely, if ever, do we get a unanimous vote, not once but twice, on an agenda item. Some believe that the entire city council did not read the staff recommendation on the council agenda, not once, but twice, prior to voting. Now, I know I read the information, and I also know my council colleagues and their respective staff are diligent in reviewing all agenda items on the council agenda. So I know this is not the case, and that when the council voted twice unanimously, we did so clearly understanding the staff recommendation and the end goal, that we would have a new bridge paid for by grant funds connecting two trails. As we know, issues and concerns were raised by a few individuals challenging the integrity of city staff and the engineering experts we hired. Hearing these concerns, I was strongly supportive of a sit-down meeting between these individuals, including the Director of Public Works, the Director of Parks, and the civil engineer who wrote the report. However, I was unable to personally attend this small group meeting since the council had a budget study session that day. After this small group meeting, a memo I authored went before the Rules Committee, outlining the various risks of delay or changing course but potentially considering at that time another engineering study focused on preservation of the existing structure, if it could be done for significantly less than the current $1 to $1.1 million price tag. The current engineering study did not take bore samples of all the wood beams, as it was a visual inspection, and therefore unforeseen damaged wood would likely increase the cost of preservation. Spending $1.1 million to preserve the structure, assuming there are no hiccups, which would be rare, as rehabilitating a structure that is old and has not been maintained for a decade could very well find ourselves in a likely scenario with more wood damage and subsequent higher costs, and a delay in completing the project would jeopardize the grant. The $1 million project could all go up in smoke when a fire occurs. This would mean a severed trail connection for countless years. Why several years? Since the city does not have millions of dollars sitting around to replace the burned wood structure. Plus the timing of when work is allowed in the creek. Summer only, and you must apply for permits a year in advance. At the Rules Committee meeting, we had speakers for and against. City staff answered all the concerns raised by speakers in a complete manner and explained the details well. The Rules Committee did not support taking this topic up again, having recently voted twice for the staff recommendation, and no new data was presented in opposition to the staff recommendation. Listening to the Rules Committee members' comments, I personally could not disagree with my colleagues' rationale. However, having heard city staff answer the concerns raised at the Rules Committee, I asked the city manager to have staff put it in writing as an informational memo, recapping the concerns from the Rules meeting, plus the previous small group of meeting held with these individuals and our civil engineers. As I mentioned earlier, I was unable to attend this small group meeting to observe the discussions. Staff followed up with my request from the Rules Committee meeting with a 6-page informational memo detailing concerns and answers from both civil and non-civil engineering staff. It is a concise document that covers the topic well. And I, like my colleagues, receive countless emails daily on a variety of topics and challenges facing the city of San Jose, and this item is no different. I found most people signing a vague petition or sending a form email did not have the background information. Therefore, I sent the 6-page informational memo to those individuals that lived in San Jose, as many that sent the council emails and signed petitions do not even reside in San Jose. In only one case did I get a response that was skeptical of the informational memo, specifically on how much it would cost to dismantle the wood structure. To this very point, I have found no credible source providing a different dollar amount for deconstructing the structure than is detailed in the engineering report. So what does the memo cover? 6 pages here. Basically covers back when it was posted on when the report was posted on the agenda back in February. It talks about the estimated costs for retaining the wooden trestle are significantly higher than for replacement bridge, and annual maintenance and inspection of trails and bridges are paid from the general fund. In addition, it talks about the environmental permitting process, what to do since the bridge is degraded, that the fact that it went through the historic process, which is required by the state, NEPA, that's a correct pronunciation, or NEPA, and that we've already looked at extending the grant and we're unable to. It goes over the engineering study, the public outreach, then it summarizes again that the annual maintenance, cleanup, and inspection costs of retaining the existing trestle bridge are significantly higher than the cost of a replacement bridge. It says that keeping the existing trestle presents a significantly higher risk of the bridge and trail system being out of service indefinitely because of the potential for fire damage or continued deterioration. Last I heard, we had 10 fires in 5 years. Some next to the structure, some on the structure. 1 arson. That this is a trail network that we're trying to build, that we want to have this connectivity, that the construction schedule to meet the grant is far more reliable with the new bridge, and that the uncertainty for construction costs is much greater because we don't know the full extent once you get into these projects of what's going on. This summer, while my colleagues might have been away, I've gone on several group tours led by Mr. Ames. These are tours of the trestle in the creek area. I did not speak at length to the group at large during these tours as I preferred to listen. What I heard was not totally one-sided, but also did not acknowledge many of the staff points, and I chose not to debate. During each tour, there was a visible and sizable homeless population in the creek area. There have been encampments here since I was in high school, and I do not see them going away anytime soon. These encampments present an inherent fire danger to the existing structure as the homeless cook where they live, which is often directly underneath the structure. The inherent fire danger is documented by the fire department, but also one can see the visual proof of past fires present in the charred wood in several locations of the structure, and even an empty gas can, which I saw after an interview at the bridge with reporter Damian Trujillo. The empty gas can was also documented in a photo on the Willow Glen website. Some on the group tour shared with me they were disturbed with the encampments and that the existing wood structure was less than what they expected. I do not believe these people will be coming back until there is a new bridge. And I'm going to read to you a letter from Megan that sent us a letter to the whole council that went on the tour. And she writes, "Dear council members, my spouse and I own a home that backs up to the Three Creeks Trail, less than 2 blocks from the Willow Glen Trestle. We strongly support the construction of the new steel trestle and urge you to use the $1 million in grant money for this new bridge in Willow Glen. In May, we joined a tour of the trestle led by individuals who wished to save the existing structure. We found the existing trestle is an eyesore, unsafe, dilapidated, and a fire hazard. Though some argue for its beauty and hope for it to be a grand entryway to Willow Glen, the existing trestle is not visible from any streets in Willow Glen. Additionally, the proposed design would not impede the flow of the creek, which is home to an impressive variety of wildlife, including Chinook salmon and steelhead trout. We look forward to the completion of the Three Creeks Trail, and that includes a safe steel bridge over the Los Gatos Creek. Please keep the funds raised for the new bridge in Willow Glen and support the new steel structure." Megan Jensen, who's actually also a biologist by her occupation. A new bridge will not remove the homeless encampments, but it will remove a wooden structure that has zero supervision from sunset to sunrise and is itself fuel for fire. Certainly doing nothing for years to come will only promote more encampments, as there's no way for the general public to use the trail without a safe way to cross the creek on foot or by bicycle. Since council voted unanimously, we've had 4 community meetings on the Three Creeks Trail, all of which cover the topic of the new bridge. We had great feedback on the trail master plan from attendees, with attendance as high as 100 people. At this meeting, staff also provided Mr. Ames the floor for the meeting. Mr. Ames was allowed to speak at length and present his very own PowerPoint slides, which were in opposition to the staff recommendation. I did not witness any outpouring from the audience embracing going back, but rather moving forward with a new bridge, so people could actually use the trail since it would be connected. After this meeting, I received, I read it in the Mercury News, there was a letter from someone that attended the meeting, and they write, "Hello, my wife and I attended the Willow Glen Trail Plan meeting." And I want to be clear, this is the meeting that Mr. Ames presented the PowerPoint presentation. "Hello, my wife and I attended the Willow Glen Trail planning meeting tonight. I know there are some vocal advocates for the old trestle, but I trust that you recognize there are plenty of other constituents who support the proposed city plan of a new steel bridge. I have to believe the design will be in good taste, as all of the design elements reviewed tonight clearly demonstrated. Any historical value of the old wooden structure exists solely in the minds of the romantics who never go there, or the retired railroad buffs who have nothing better to do than debate and obstruct. Please proceed if possible with the new bridge. Thank you. George and Pamela on Minnesota." I want to clarify, that was an email to me. There's another letter I'll read to you that was printed in the Mercury News. This same community meeting also provided the opportunity for Mr. Ames and others to have a second sit-down discussion with the civil engineer who wrote the report. This time, I was able to observe the conversation firsthand. What I saw were concerns and issues raised, and the civil engineer responding with complete and very technical answers. However, it seemed from my observation that no matter what was said by the civil engineer, it was not trusted nor accepted by the individuals opposed. Mind you, this is the expert we hired, and it seemed to me in the presence of Public Works and Park staff that the answers were complete. Also presented by Mr. Ames during this discussion were some new concept drawings of actually adding on to the existing structure. However, these new concept drawings are not part of the engineering report, and the civil engineer said these design changes would require an additional engineering report, additional structural engineering, and inevitably increase the cost significantly. So now I'll read you the letter to the editor that's someone who attended that meeting as well, and they write, "This past Wednesday I attended the third workshop to discuss the Three Creeks Trail Master Plan. The City of San Jose should be commended. They presented a wonderful plan to replace the old trestle across the Los Gatos Creek and other details for the trail itself. We have lived next to Los Gatos Creek for 25 years in Willow Glen. We support the City Council in its decision to approve a new bridge at the Three Creeks Trail. It's time to move forward. Steve Anderson." And another letter from Jack Stallard, who's here today, former president of the Willow Glen Neighborhood Association, but you spoke, so I won't read your letter to the editor. But I will say that nostalgia can be a strong emotion. I believe that the bridge is nostalgic, but as covered in the report, it is not historic. Some people in Willow Glen were nostalgic about the former Willow Glen Library on Minnesota Avenue. However, now we have a new library that is good for the long term. Others were adamantly opposed to the tearing down of the old Blaine's Lighting Building on Lincoln Avenue to make way for a new retail and office development, now home to Lou's Village, among others. Because of this approval, Willow Glen now has a town square. This new fountain area is constantly filled with people, both young and old alike, united in their enjoyment of this enhanced open space. I believe a year from now, we will be celebrating the opening of a new bridge, paid for by grant funds and not the general fund, nor park funds, which will mean we will not have to give up on commitments made for other neighboring parks and even the build out of the trail. I know the council also received a letter from the California Trolley Railroad Group. If this group has $1 million, then I'm all ears. However, they do not. I contacted 3 board members who were listed on the letter, and they each said they had never been asked about this issue. The County of Santa Clara Board of Supervisors on May 24th voted to have county park staff work with city staff on this issue. The board president acknowledged that this is 100% a city decision. Since that vote in May, county park staff reviewed all the information and authored a report. The county report actually validates the city staff work is correct. The county validated the structure is not historic. The county validated the structure has a risk of fire danger. The county validated the grant is expiring and cannot be extended. The county validated the cost to maintain the existing structure is higher than a new bridge. So this appears to me to be third-party validation of the work that staff has done. In closing, if there are any vote change today from the prior to unanimous votes, it would be a mystery to the public, since no new data has been presented, nor has there been any change of the staff recommendation. Those individuals opposed raised concerns commonly known as FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that would ultimately result in having no trail connection for years to come. Government entities, including San Jose, have spent millions of dollars on this land, and at minimum, given the current opportunity before us, we should enable this land to be accessible for the public now, rather than waiting years, as there are no monies in the District 6 park funds to cover this project. After today, I'm hopeful those opposed will lay down their quiver and cease with veiled threats to stop the new bridge by interfering with the environmental application. Staff believes through their conversations with state regulatory agencies that the timeline can be achieved for environmental permits, dismantling the wood structure, and actual construction of the new bridge. This trail, will provide joy to San Jose residents for many years to come, however, only once it's actually connected. Staff, do you have any comments or